Hey guys, welcome to this week's, well actually the first of two of this week's FinTech Insider on air. This week we're coming to you live from Sibos in London at a pretty impressive show, I have to say. There's 11,000 delegates walking around here, so it's pretty intense. Today we're live actually from our booth 21A over at the Discovery Zone. So if you want to come and say hey to the 11FS guys or everybody who creates FinTech Insider, come and say hello. So today what we're going to be talking about is all things digital transformation. And I've got with me today Niall Cameron from HSBC.
Hello.
How's it going, Niall?
Very good.
I mean, you're well versed on this in terms of this particular subject matter, so
exactly.
We're going to have a good debate because actually it feels like Sibos has kind of moved the agenda forward again. You know, I mean, last time, I think it was Sydney, it felt very sort of corporate. But actually this year, I think both the maturity, we were just saying this off air, but the maturity of the industry, both in terms of banking and fintech, it feels like the conversation has moved on quite a lot, right?
The conversations are becoming very sophisticated. And, you know, if I look at previous Siboses, there was maybe a theme, you know, DLT, or there was a theme about innovation, but actually now it's a very pragmatic discussion. And it's a much more of a partnership discussion. And when you walk around Sibos now, compared to a few years ago, you're not quite sure where the banks are, where the fintechs are. It seems to be really blending and merging.
It does, and actually, yeah, there's sort of mix of technology and challenger and the big organizations with all of the customers. It seems really interesting. A few stats. We always like to start with the stats on the show. So according to research from BCG, so 43% of financial institutions confess that they don't even have a digital strategy, which I was quite surprised at, I have to say. You know, that's a large number of people who aren't really pushing on a digital strategy. An astonishing 1 in 5 banking execs consider their bank or credit union market leading when it comes to digital, which is more surprising than the first statistic potentially. And then the last one is 86% strongly agreed that their banking technology infrastructure is complicated and potentially a hindrance to quickly enabling digital interactions. Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to unpack on that one, but I guess maybe before we get into that, Niall, I know you've been on the show, I mean, on FinTech Insider for a few times, but maybe unpack a little bit about your role at HSBC,
sure.
and then we'll get into it.
Exactly. Well, I'm head of digital for CMB and GBM, so the commercial bank and the investment bank and the trading piece of our business. It was a role that was created 3.5 years ago. We probably were looking at some of those statistics or feeling some of those statistics, and particularly our corporate clients were saying to us, you know, we would like more. We'd like more from you digitally. So we did a survey with them, worked out what they wanted, what were the pain points, what were the things they were aspiring to do with us, and we formed a program called Digital Transformation for Corporates, which was really focusing on addressing those issues. We've been doing that for 3.5 years. Honestly, most of the work that we're doing for the corporates are equally beneficial for the financial institutions, but it had that initial corporate focus. And it's been primarily looking at the channels. We were going through what we felt was the essential piece of digitizing, just getting the channels to look right, getting the journeys right, getting the design culture, getting clients in to help us build at the beginning and design at the beginning, not at the end. Yeah. Getting agile, getting multiple releases. So there was a sort of duality of build, but also cultural change. And that cultural change meant, you know, you do things quick, you do things with your clients. You don't build and then talk to your clients 18 months later. So, do you like this? Yeah. So really a combination of build and cultural change. It's been really satisfying. I think we've had a fantastic result from it. We've been really focusing on HSBC Net, on our business banking channels, our Connect, which was our host-to-host, and most recently building out our API suite and our API portal.
I mean, that's so important. You know, so many organizations don't do that bit. They focus so much on the output rather than the culture and the operations. Because, I mean, we all say, I kind of go back to, I really need to look up this song, but it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. So true, you know, setting up the operation, setting up the culture, and allowing small teams of multidisciplinary teams, whether it's technologists or designers or product people, who are really close to what customers are to make decisions. So, I mean, the fruit of that is being seen now.
Yeah, I think if you break up the deliveries into small pieces, it can be much more satisfying for everybody because they get that real feel of momentum. You know, oh, something's getting delivered in 2 months, and then next month there's another 3 things being delivered, and it has that feeling of momentum.
Yeah.
If you sort of, again, you disappear for a couple of years and say, no, something magic's going to happen, people lose faith. They don't feel the change happening. So you've got to break up the deliveries. You have to get those deliveries to work because you can't just market this and say, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that, when actually nothing's coming out. So so breaking into small deliveries, getting that momentum, showing that these things work, that really helps that cultural change. Because in these big firms, you've got these hundreds of thousands of people, many offices, many businesses. You know, how do you get people feeling that momentum? You have to do a lot to get it. You can't just do the project delivery.
Yeah, it's amazing. I honestly think it's culture is such a misunderstood thing. But actually, if you look at, across the industry, you've got, Microsoft going through a major cultural transformation. Arguably, the FCA are going through a major cultural transformation with Innovate and everything that they're doing with the sandboxes. Yes. So, the change that the industry is going through, some forced by, some regulation, some forced through, with open banking and everything that's come through there, but some through actually people realizing that the traits or the characteristics that are required in a digital world are so fundamentally different to the analog world where they were established. And really, I think we've got that tension right now of letting go of some of the sort of sacred cows when it comes to the way things are done around here, which is just unlocking so much potential. Because I come back to banks have got so many customers, they've got all of the investment potential to move these things forward. I honestly think it's usually culture that inhibits that happening.
I think what we've seen in many institutions is that there have been these digital units, innovation units, initiatives, projects, and a lot of are now becoming very successful. Probably the next phase culturally is for that feeling to be shared with the much wider population and to get that engagement. And I think that there's some very important things that you can do to get information to people. If your bankers, the salespeople, particularly the client interfaces, understand digital, understand the products, understand the trends, they don't need to be experts, but they need to be able to be comfortable with the topic to a certain level. They will really engage with it, and then they can engage the clients. And I think this is the next phase of working out how do we get people comfortable walking into a meeting, and when the topic comes up, they're happy to talk about it. Obviously, when it gets to a more pragmatic or technical level, they bring in some experts. But that's the next stage.
Sounds good. One of the things definitely from walking around the floors here is, it feels like, a couple of years ago, it was a lot more combative. There was a divide. It was, people trying to take over other people's businesses. It feels like the maturity in the market now has led to many more sort of partnerships being created. I know this is something that, you are a big advocate for in terms of the way in which to do that. But what's your thoughts on that?
I think you're right, David. You're right. It was a more combative situation. Certainly 2 years ago. I think last year there was a realization that actually it'd be better to work together, and now you've got many situations where people have worked together and it's succeeding. So I think that is working well. If you stand back for this, and this is a massive generalization, so excuse generalization.
Sorry, we love those on this show, don't worry.
Exactly. The fintechs are brilliant because they have focus. They tend to choose one area, at least in the early stages. They focus on it, and focus on it, and they focus on it again. And they get really good at it, they know everything, and they can produce fantastic products in that area. What they typically don't have at the beginning is networks. So they have this fantastic product, but the customers are all somewhere else. The bigger players don't tend to be able to have that really sharp focus because they're doing so many things. So they spread themselves a bit thin, but they have the network. And so suddenly, if you say, well, hold a second, I've got a network here, and I've got a fantastic product here. Why can't I bring that into the network, and everybody wins? I think that's the main play at the moment. Now, of course, then what's happening now in some of the big institutions, people say, well, actually, if we have some sharp focus on a few things, we could actually do this as well. But we're not the only network.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a big world out there, and even though we're big, the world's bigger than us.
Yeah.
So can't we tap into those networks? And so that's probably the way that things are starting to move now, although early stages.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We often talk about the banking battlefield, like the different players who are in this space, and it's not just small startups; it's gigantic tech firms. You know, if you look at, Apple Cards and Goldman Sachs' relationship is essentially a partnership, you know, to go to market with Apple's distribution, as you say, the network that they have, with the product from an incumbent player. So, I mean, it's interesting times. Like, it really feels like I almost everybody could be a bank if they have a big enough distribution capability right now, which, I mean, again, it's the amount of brands. I mean, Disney doing a child banking account could be a thing, you know, like there's no reason why they wouldn't do, and like both of my kids would definitely want one of those cards, you know, so.
Well, I think what you're seeing is all of the people used to have traditional functions and roles. So everybody was in boxes.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing now with the cost of technology coming down and the understanding of what you can do with technology and data processing becoming so much more advanced and so much cheaper, is actually all the borders of those boxes are coming down.
Yeah.
And so people are actually able to sit in any of the historical boxes and go, well, we don't need to be in this box anymore. You know, we quite like that box.
Yeah.
Or we want to have a bit of that box, but let's do a partnership because there's a lot of work to get there. So let's just go quick and do it with somebody we like. And I think that's what we're going to see in the next few years. You might see in a few years' time, it might be difficult to categorize people. You know, they may be they're players, they're participants.
Yeah.
But are they banks? Are they technology companies? Are they fintechs? You know, where are they?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of. I mean, I guess the only person who it matters to is essentially the customer at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
And actually, I mean, from a regulatory perspective, the protection and everything that kind of comes with it. But I think, I mean, this is almost. I love that because it's a sort of a melting pot of people really trying to do different things. I mean, HSBC are, I think, very uniquely placed in that as well, given the global reach of the organization. I think you're 67 countries, isn't it? So 67 countries doing this, seeing these trends, different players coming to the fore. You know, the people that you'll collaborate with in Hong Kong are very different to the people you collaborate with in London, you know? So just that ecosystem, you know, you talk about networks. I mean, you guys are one of the biggest networks that there is.
Yeah, and I think we need to be increasingly more open to the innovation coming from those countries. Yeah. I think historically, again, big companies tend to be quite dominated, or so they're culturally dominated in one or two locations.
Sure.
You know, for us, probably the UK and Hong Kong, and that's where most of the innovation happened. That's where most of the technology build was. The product heads, you know, that's the way it's been set up. But increasing what we're seeing is fantastic innovations coming out of the countries, and we need to harness that more. You know, India leading on digital identity, and some of the Gulf states leading on some of the trade products, and it's really interesting. And I think we need to harness that more, because I think you're going to see brilliance all over the world going forward. It won't just be in the main hubs.
Yeah. And how do banks? I mean, I guess you're to that point. I mean, you're uniquely placed to be able to benefit from that because you've got operations in so many different places that you can absorb what's happening in each of those different locations. But I mean, what would your advice be to banks to do that? Because I guess you guys kind of do it almost by osmosis, you know, being in all those countries, you can absorb that culture or the innovations that are happening. But it almost like, I guess it's a great advantage from your perspective. It's a disadvantage if you're Lloyd's or somebody who's, or any other, you know, UK-based organization, because what's happening here is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but actually you can lose so much opportunity by not having that much bigger view, you know?
Yes.
Not talk about the US, they're not quite there yet, but everywhere else I think is doing lots of really innovative things, you know?
Yeah, I think that there's advantages to being focused on a topic or a country. You know, you can be really tight and you can, you know, wrap the marketing around it and the strategy around it. There's advantages for having, you know, eyes everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think one of the The real advantage for us, though, is when we do something, when we build something new, or we've bought it in and white labeled it, we can roll it out to all countries.
Yeah.
And that's very satisfying. And that was a process that used to be very difficult for us. It was a very awkward process, very slow process.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, sometimes the innovations never got to the smaller countries.
Yeah.
What we're doing now is trying to get that rollout very fast, so that we can get everybody globally with the same functionality.
Yeah.
And actually what we're doing now is we're quite often piloting in some of the smaller countries to test it out, and also to give that feeling of, no, you're first this time, you're not at the back of the queue. And that's been received very positively.
Nice. I mean, it's textbook innovator's dilemma. This is, are the startups going to get distribution before the incumbents get innovation?
Yeah.
And it's good to hear that so many organizations are really getting how true innovation actually works. Because I think that's the thing that will be the differentiator in terms of how great customer journeys, great customer experience, and actually culture and happy employees. I think this is the dawn, I think, of digital.
Yes.
People have talked about digital banking for 5-10 years. I know one of our Neds, Chris Skinner, I'm pretty sure has written 10 books on the stuff, but I argue continually that I just don't think we've seen digital banking yet. I think it's coming.
No, I mean, you coined the phrase, I think, digitizing to digital, and I remember you told me that about 12 months ago or something, and I liked it, because it's so true that we're all, collectively going through this digitizing process. You're getting the basics right, you're getting those interactions right, you're getting the cultural foundations right. That's what you're doing now. To go digital as an institution could quite honestly mean doing everything different.
Yeah, it is a challenge.
And you look at distribution differently. You look at partnerships differently.
Yeah.
You look at your role differently. Sometimes you are a component part of somebody else's platform. Sometimes you are the platform. Sometimes you're equal partners. Sometimes you're the player. You're the vendor, and you're buying their service. Sometimes they're the innovation coming inside, and you're learning from them, even though you're the big firm.
Yeah.
So those roles are changing, and actually, what you need to be as a firm is adept at being all those things, because it's not one thing. People say, "Oh, are we going to be a platform player or not?" I said, "We'll probably be both."
Yeah.
And in certain areas, we'll be going to somebody else's platform with our product. Some areas, they'll come into us. Sometimes our product will be visible.
Yeah.
Sometimes our product will be invisible. It'll be embedded in somebody else's product. We need to be comfortable with those different roles. It also means you're probably going to have different commercial models.
Yeah.
Because you're starting to think about if you think commercially how banks have worked, they've charged a margin, they've charged a fee. It's been a very conventional approach. But actually, in a digital world, you have a very different approach to commercialization. You need to look at it much more holistically.
Yeah.
There may be certain areas where you make no money, but they help you make money somewhere else. Yeah. You may move to different models. One of the models that interests me is the subscription model. You've seen it very successfully in certain areas, with Netflix obviously and Amazon Prime recently. Why can't you have a subscription model for some parts of finance?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's both financially a good thing to do, but also it focuses almost I know me and you have talked about this over dinner before, but it's the industry's moving from financial products to services. We say it in total irony, it's like financial services is the industry, but actually a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or an Uber or a Deliveroo Premium, like all of these things are adding real value to people, and because of that they're willing to pay for that value.
Yes.
And I think in financial services, I think that's where we'll go. It's almost like, we always say digital banking is only 1% finished, and I think the next 99% is definitely about services into financial services. And like you say, the makeup of banks' financial instruments will change to allow us to do distribution in a way that it's never really been done before.
David, the other thing that's really important here is the cost, in a sense, the unit cost of delivery.
Yeah.
Because if you want to move to different commercial models, particularly if you're moving to more of a subscription style, the concept of subscription is, well, look, you give me a certain amount of money and you can have everything. Yeah. There's tierings to that, obviously, and there would be in financial services, but that's the construct.
Yeah.
Now, to do that, you need to have a very low unit cost of delivery.
Absolutely.
And so that's obviously going to be one of the interesting areas over the next few years. Who can get to a really good and low cost delivery? And is it just about getting as much volume in as possible, or is it about the efficiency underneath that? In reality, it's probably both.
Definitely. I mean, if HSBC could do challenger bank economics with global bank distribution, you're killing it at that point.
Well, that's right. And I think you'll also see, we've been talking about partnerships and you build or buy. I can see somebody that creates very efficient processing plants with up-to-date modern technology, plugging that in to lower your cost of your cost of delivery. These are interesting areas.
Yeah.
So there's a whole host of things that will spin off being a digital bank.
Yeah.
And the partnerships actually could be all over the place, not just at the front end of distribution, but let's say at the back end in terms of processing. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about this for days, but I mean, I've heard HSBC has the best coffee at Sibos.
We do.
So I'm going to head over to there to go grab a coffee now.
We do. I mean, somebody said it was a rumor. I said it's not a rumor, it's a fact. But our barista moves around the world with us to conferences and sporting events, and is one of the, obviously our bankers are the major draw for our stand, but the second major draw is our barista.
Well, I'm going to go check out, I'm going to go fact check whether it's the best coffee or not. I'll let you guys know. Where can people find out more about you then, Niall?
Oh, LinkedIn is always the best place for me.
Fantastic. All right, well, thank you very much for joining us for this episode. If you liked it, then please share it on Twitter or on social media, on LinkedIn. And if you've got any comments or suggestions for other topics, just hit me on david@11fs.com. Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.